Welcome, and thank you for watching SNR News. My name is Carol Baskin, and we have a breaking news report for you. Across multiple U.S. states, people are in a state of panic after discovering that their minds may in fact be altering their perception of reality. This, all in response to a viral video which shows how what we can see can be dramatically altered by our brain. If our minds can freely change what we see, how can we know that anything is real? Joining us on the program, we have Dr. Danae Ricard to answer this question. Danae, thanks for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
What is your take on the panic people are displaying in response to this viral video?
Well, Carol, I for one think that this irrational behavior is completely unjustified and stems from a misunderstanding of how our consciousness works.
Would you care to explain?
Well, first we should define what it means to be conscious and how our conscious state can directly influence what we see, such as in the case of this video. A common belief is that once something, such as a computer, reaches a certain level of intelligence, consciousness can be achieved. But I propose that it has less to do with pure intelligence and more to do with our nature as living, breathing organisms. You don't have to be smart to suffer, but you probably do have to be alive.
Interesting. So what does this have to do with our minds altering our physical perception, as the video suggests?
What I'm saying is our conscious experience of the world around us is a type of controlled hallucination, a product of our physical perception and our personal interpretation of it. In this sense, our brain is a prediction engine. It can't hear sound or see light. It simply sees them as streams of electrical impulses, which are only indirectly related to things in the world.
So basically, you're saying that our brains are performing informed guesswork, and that's why we sometimes see things incorrectly?
Yes, precisely.
Is this a new phenomenon among humans, or has this been happening since the beginning of our existence?
Well, surprisingly, this sort of thing has been going on for thousands of years, and was originally created by our brains as a survival instinct to ensure our safety. But now, we simply refer to it as cognitive penetration.
When did we discover that our brains are doing that?
This has been a highly debated idea for years, which has just more recently gained traction. The more traditional view is that our environment is the only factor contributing to what we see, but the theory of cognitive penetration suggests that our minds have an equally significant role in forming our perception.
How is that possible? I would think it would be impossible to have a conscious thought or understanding about something unless you have physically seen or experienced it for yourself. How would my mind know that I'm looking at a dog, or what a dog is, if I have never encountered a dog before?
So that's a good point. Cognitive penetration does not come into play unless we previously experienced the situation at hand and have memories of what typically happens in that scenario. So if it was your first time seeing a dog, cognitive penetration wouldn't be possible, but this would synchronically form a memory. Let's say you saw a silhouette of the dog off in the distance sometime later. You would be more inclined to identify it as a dog because of the diachronic penetration of perception.
Can you explain the difference between the two? Synchronic and diachronic penetration?
So, if something influences our perception synchronically, it means that our cognitive state in the exact moment is influencing our perception. But diachronic penetration happens over time when people learn consistent visual patterns which reformulate our expectations of what we're seeing and constructs them into a new reality.
Okay, that makes sense. But what if it was actually a silhouette of something else that resembled a dog, and my brain was wrong?
Yeah, so this is an anomaly that René Descartes thought of and addressed extensively in his most famous work, Meditations on First Philosophy.
I've heard of that. Isn't that the philosophical treatise where he proposed that our senses are in fact fallible?
Yes, he recognized that our senses can fail us, and this can cause issues when trying to decipher what is true and what is false. Luckily, our brains make pretty accurate guesses most of the time.
That's great news. But how do we know when our brains are deceiving us?
Truth is, we don't. But that's okay, and can actually be a good thing sometimes. For example, in the movie Inception, this idea was portrayed pretty well when the viewers are left to question whether or not the main character was dreaming or not when he was finally reunited with his children. If his brain was deceiving him and he was actually still in a dream state, he might be better off not knowing this. If he were to find out that he were dreaming, there would be no way for him to turn back, and his life basically would have been ruined. So regardless, his brain made him believe that he had made the right decision.
Okay, so I see how this theory could relate to the video with the gray boxes. This example doesn't seem too detrimental. Would you be able to give me an example where our brain's misinterpretations could be harmful?
Yeah, so this happens pretty often. Take this scenario for example. Suppose a girl named Jill believes that her boyfriend Jack is upset with her. As he approaches her, Jill interprets Jack's neutral expression as a negative one. Her belief that he has a negative expression on his face reinforces her idea that he is mad at her. This is an example of inaccurate cognitive penetration, influencing the outcome of a real-life situation.
That makes sense. I wonder if this same theory applies to the placebo effect. I've heard that this is sometimes more effective than real medicine, even though it's just a matter of your brain tricking you into believing it works.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Though the process is less visual than the others mentioned, cognitive penetrability operates in essentially the same way. The preconceived notion that taking a pill correlates with one feeling better influences the body's physical response, even if the pill has no medicinal properties.
So, Danae, with a better understanding of cognitive penetration, what sorts of insights can you leave with our audience going forward?
Yeah, so I think everyone can benefit from having a more complete understanding of how our minds operate. This awareness can help us navigate social situations more effectively and help us realize that what we perceive isn't always the exact same as somebody else. Additionally, we're using this to work towards a better understanding of mental illness, which does cause hallucinations where a person's cognitive perception is overstimulated.
Well, Mr. Ricard, I'm afraid that's all the time we have left. I'm Carol Baskin, and thank you for joining us today on SNR.